everybody believes they're failing at technology.
Well, if you're not using AI, you're getting behind.
What do they actually need to be using?
Machine, and therefore surely it should be good at numbers. And it's like really bad with numbers.
Yeah. Oh dear. It's that relief of like, it's okay to have the tech that fits you.
Let's uncover what is better with humans. In this episode, we welcome Helen Adshead, who my wife and I first met almost 4 years ago. And she and Julia have continued to stay in touch. Helen is a purpose and strategy coach, digital advisor, and former bakery founder with a background in technology and systems thinking. After nearly a decade of running a gluten-free and dairy-free bakery, she made the transition into helping others align their work with their God-given purpose. Helen now works both as a digital advisor for Norfolk County Council's Go Digital programme, helping businesses use technology more wisely, and as a coach supporting individuals and leaders to discern what truly matters in a fast-moving and tech-driven world. Welcome, Helen.
Welcome. Thank you.
So we were chatting a bit earlier. It's so interesting that that we end up covering stuff and wishing we'd click record. Yeah. And what would be really just interesting, one of the things that we did start talking about was this approach to technology. So, and you mentioned about with your experience with Go Digital, maybe you can share some of that in terms of the challenges you see when it comes to, and the mistakes that are made when it comes to approaching technology.
Yeah, so the Go Digital programme is part of a government scheme to get small businesses more au fait with technology, because then that actually improves their productivity and gives some power to the business owners. So as part of that, I get the joy of meeting all types of business owners, from your painter and decorator to somebody running a small cafe to somebody running an electrical solar panel installer. You know, I've met a whole range. And the things that I found in common is that everybody believes they're failing at technology, which is quite a shock. Some of them really aren't. And as part of that process, so we start a process where I do an audit with them, that I go through what technology they're using, to which I find they're mainly apologising for not using, social media better or whatever it is. And as I learn about their business, one of my questions is, what do they actually need to be using? And I think social media is a perfect example. As a small business, you're often told, or even a medium-sized business, you're told you must be on all the platforms and you need to be doing this and posting 3 times a week and everything else. Well, for a local painter and decorator, actually, there is no reason for them to be on half of those platforms. Actually, there are things that are more beneficial to them, like Google Business Profile or Bing Places. Or you've got like Nextdoor as an organisation that you can be on. That's much more beneficial to them and their conversion to sales than actually if they were doing beautiful gardens on Instagram. Or beautiful rooms on Instagram. It just doesn't necessarily work. But there's still that pressure that they've been told that they're failing at business because they haven't done social media. So it's I think that's quite a difficult thing for them to be able to kind of go, okay. And so part of my job is literally go, it's fine, close the Facebook account that you haven't used for 4 years, or and they're like, what, really? And it's that relief of like, it's okay to have the tech that fits you. So rather than you believing you have to do what the tech wants, you can take control. So
yeah, I had some great sound bites there. So I love that. I love that tech that fits you.
Yeah,
I think that is such an interesting concept, isn't it? That we would go into a shop. I was in a charity shop earlier today with my oldest daughter. You go into a shop, and if there's things that you will either go, you like, you don't like. When it comes to clothes, you look at them and you go, do I like them? Do I not like them? How functional are they going to be? What do I need it? And then you're also going to try it on. And this idea of seeing technology of what fits, as opposed to so you walking into a charity shop and somebody standing there going, look at this lovely jacket. Let me put this jacket. Oh, it's brilliant. Look, it totally fits you and it's all baggy. And it's interesting. We can get that with technology, can't we? That we don't, particularly if we're getting information from other areas that aren't necessarily understanding what
you
we
as a
really
business.
need. And yeah, and that was really shocking actually when you said about that they believe they're failing at technology.
Yeah.
And there is this, as you say, so much language. And I mean, I certainly see a lot of my feed around AI. That's, well, if you're not using AI, you're getting behind. If you're,
Yeah.
that you need to use AI to 10 times your production, your production, and all these things that are really marketing messages. And if we don't understand that, we don't see it, then we treat it as, oh, yeah, I've got to do that. But certainly social media, I mean, it's been years, hasn't it? That
Yeah.
whole, oh, yeah, be on it or you're going to miss out. And that's
Yeah.
a brilliant analogy, what you said, that certain people, particularly tradespeople. I mean, I've got an example of someone at our church, and he's got videos of over 1 million views on Instagram of him tiling. And yet he doesn't get much work, any work out of the Instagram. He enjoys doing the videos and the satisfaction of getting 1 million views. But then when you realize it, a lot of the people watching those views are people that find it satisfying.
Yeah.
Watching somebody tile sped up. They just enjoy sitting there going, oh, they find it really satisfying. And they're not.
They're purchasers. They're not the customers that you're appealing to. Yeah. I mean, AI is a perfect example. When you speak to people, there is this, you get two camps. You get those that have tried it, don't really understand it. And you get those that are terrified of it because they think it's going to somehow take over the world. And it's like, actually, there's this middle ground that you have to kind of lead people to, that actually it is a tool. I'm sure if I picked up a washing machine from the kitchen and took it back to the Roman times, they'd all be terrified of it. But, they'd rather grab their bucket and a stone and whatever else they need to go and do and that kind of thing. But actually, when you understand that the washing machine can save you time, now that's great. It's a fantastic tool, but you don't sort of sit there and go, oh, well, this is it. The washing machine's now going to take over the world. It's going to cook my dinner. It's going to cook. It just doesn't do all of those things. Just because it inhabits the same space in your kitchen doesn't mean that it can do everything else. And I think, slowly teaching people that AI is a tool, and actually if you find the right tool, then you get the best out of it. But still, you still have to sort the clothes, because we all know that if you drop a red sock in the middle of your whitewash, then what you're getting back isn't any use. And AI is exactly like that. And it's just being able to be relaxed about it, but then also understand that it's finding the right tool for the job. And I think there's a lot where people are like, oh, you want to use this and you want to use that. And there is a lot of noise, particularly around AI. And there are some amazing tools out there. And I am a complete tech lover, and I will go off and I will try all of them. My favorite thing is somebody recommends me a piece of software and off I go. I need to go and try and play with it. Some of them I like, some of them don't suit me, but actually as an advisor, I get to be able to work out what they need and what suits them. And there are tools which are set up to be more supportive of dyslexia. There are tools which are, and so therefore you can mix and match to actually get those things easier. So it's just like, yeah. So I'm a big fan of AI. I like to see what it can do, but I also think that the thing that AI can never be is human. The one thing that humans have that always trumps AI is we're as unpredictable as anything. Our unpredictability is our superpower against AI. I am a person that is very easily distracted by lots of shiny things. And I know that I can walk into a room and forget what I'm there for because I've seen something and I'll get distracted and go and do that task. AI doesn't have that ability to be distracted. It can only respond back to what you're prompting it to do. And therefore that gives it a safety and a security. It's learnt a lot of information about us. I'm very glad about that. It saves me a lot of time having to search stuff. But yeah, it's something I kind of like to play with, but also I'm not scared of it. So
yeah, it's very helpful to look at it, as you say, in terms of it can never be completely human. And one of the things that I heard somebody speaking about recently was because AI does pattern recognition, and actually its results are all on a statistical basis. So it's basically, okay, I think I've got an 89% chance that what respond back to the user is what they want, but I'm doing it based upon thinking what I think they want based on what they've given me, and sometimes they can get it completely wrong, and we talk about that as hallucinations, but actually it really is just it's making a guess. And I found that really interesting. And when we look at AI and we think actually it's making a guess, there's obviously ways that we can do to improve its ability to get that information accurate, and like pointing it into particular information. But that really, I found that so helpful. When you think of it as saying it's guessing, then when it gets it wrong, you're like, okay, it made a guess. How can I respond in a prompt? How can I improve that prompt to statistically improve the chance of getting a better guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also depending on which AI system you're using, I kind of feel they're all very slightly different in tone and emphasis and accuracy and clarity and that kind of thing. I described it the other day to someone like dog breeds. ChatGPT is a little bit like your Labrador. It gets very excited and it's like, we'd like to help you. Let me come and play, and would you like to do this? Would you like to know that? And it wants that extra attention and that interaction. Whereas I feel like Claude AI, currently my favorite, that's a little bit more like a border collie. You direct it where you want to go and it will get the job done. It's quite clean and efficient. It gets the sheep in the pen. As long as you've told it which pen, where and what you want, it's quite good at that. Whereas I find Copilot is a little bit more like a terrier. It's quite energetic, quite fast. It's great for a task. So it's just like, but the thing is people get addicted to the way that one of them speaks to them. It's like having a friend that how they speak and you get used to that. Yeah. And I've certainly had people slightly unnerving who are like, well, I had a long chat with ChatGPT, as if they're having a long chat with you or I. And it's just like, okay, you do understand it's not real. It's not having emotions. It's prompting you with the expected responses because it's learnt and looked at conversations and large language models across so much data that it gets used to us. I think it's the first time, the one thing I always remember that I have to tell the AIs is I am British English, because actually my cultural conversation is very different to my friends in America. And that difference comes through in the response that I need and want to be able to make it valuable to me. So it's just that whole thing of, just make sure you don't drop the red sock in the white wash is really important because you don't want all pink. Yeah. So,
and it happens, right? You do get all pink, and then you can be like, "Oh, why doesn't it understand?" And and it can be. I found that frustrating, and as I say, remembering, it's just statistically making a guess.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, it's guessing, right? Okay, then the expectation is lowered in terms of the response, and there's a kind of number of different ways we could kind of go on from there. One of the things that comes to mind is, two things really. One is personalization. So you covered that a little bit in terms of setting the personalization in AI so it knows you're British and English and how you want it in terms. And I've just, you're talking about playing with new things. I heard of OpenClaw before, but it came up again the other day. So I was like, okay, fine. I've now set myself an OpenClaw agent called Sebastian, who's modeled on Sebastian from The Little Mermaid, just because I thought that would be fun. and then the interesting thing about that is that I was talking to a friend and he goes, well, you want to be careful that you don't humanize it because you're personalizing this character. So now I've updated the personalization to put it in there to actually get it to remind me. Part of its job is to remind me that it's AI, to remind me that it's limited, to remind me that it's not human, so that I get that reminder rather than, like you say, if you are talking to AI and you're wanting the human responses, it's going to try, but it's still guessing, which is why sometimes you'll get a response. It knew exactly what I wanted. Well, that's what it's trying to do.
Yes.
And it's not. Yes. That's the most, it's being the human. It's been the kind of, sometimes you want the human friend that is just tells you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
But most of the time you want the human friend that is really honest with you, and whatever you get from them is going to be, you strike me as, that type of person. You're like, I'm going to say it as it is.
Yeah,
right? This is what I think. And that's a really valuable thing. But AI doesn't do that because it's trying to statistically
it's trying to get you to interact with it more and more. And that doesn't mean that it's trying to.
Well, that's, So that's another thing though, isn't it? That, that's a whole nother thing, which is us remembering that if we look at the companies, a lot of them that are building AI, or those that are behind the building of the AI, and what we've seen recently with Meta and the court and the whole addiction side of things, there is still a bias towards asking you, what else do you want me to do? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to? And it's just can be helpful, but at times as well, as you say, there's an element of it, kind of drawing you in again, and that comes back to the other point from the personalization, the fact that you said something. I had a long chat with ChatGPT of this. How do we stay connected how do you generally stay connected with people how do we make sure that what are your thoughts on how we stay connected with other people and not get drawn into just an online digital world that we don't interact with other people?
I think I'm forever an extrovert. So for me, it's probably easier than all of my introvert friends. Like, I genuinely need more people in my life. And so for me, I find that one of the things I had to be really careful of, particularly doing the audits and getting to know the clients very easily and having that rapport, was that, yes, I've got a transcript running that's recording everything and translating it so I can feed it and then interrogate that later. But actually being able to see people and connect to them. We're not sat there with like an AI avatar. We are actually humans. And I think it's in our idiosyncrasies. That's the bit that is my delight, is actually knowing how people work slightly different. So for me, it's just connecting. Obviously, I go outside of the computer. I do leave the house and I go dancing, and I also go to church, and both give me great joy in slightly different ways. I think there's that moment of just remembering that there is actually a world full of humans, that a lot of them are feeling lonely, and that actually joining networking groups or things like that just gives you that moment to step outside. I like doing training courses, even though often I go to the training course just because I know most of the subject, but I enjoy going to sort of meet others that are looking in that area, because then we're of similar likes. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a valid point, in terms of there is something that AI can help you, or pretend that it's like-minded in terms of, but reality is we do have this thing inside of all of us that we
want connection.
When we're in a place with people that are on the same wavelength, that we can connect with. It doesn't matter whether extrovert, introvert. If we're extrovert, we might have
a little bit more
different people that we can go to, and my diary is often almost too filled up with me going out and meeting up with somebody different.
Yeah.
But even if we're the introvert side of things, there's still that there's that somebody that gets you.
Yes. And it's in the weird things. It's never in the, like, I think that's the thing, is AI can't do that jump from. It can do the predictive, it can have the conversation about the weather with you. The British are phenomenal at that. We can talk about the weather, and we're great at queuing. It can do all of that type of stuff because that's what it predicts you to be interested in and want to do. But what it can't do is tell you that weird little story that you got up to, the thing that made you laugh. It doesn't have those. It doesn't have that connection. I often think of AI, it's like an expert with a 9-year-old brain. It comes across sounding like it's great, and it's really experienced, and that's the thing. But actually what sometimes it comes out with is not very useful, and you have to check all the output of it, because it's also at times, now I can talk a lot, but at times it's extra talkative and therefore just fills you with far too much text that you don't need. But I think I think it's the little things that connect us. It's never the big things, and AI just doesn't give us that. It doesn't give us. It can talk about what a value is, but it can't work it out in process in front of you.
Yeah. And again, that's really important. I think you say about staying connected, it is the little things. It's the nuances that AI can't do. Now, you could spend hours and hours giving it more and more information about you, about your stories, you can do all those things, and it can be able to, do the pattern recognition, do guesses at what you want to hear, and pull in some of those things that you've done and say that it resonates with those things. And actually, that's one of the things that in the personalization for this, for Sebastian, the open Claude agent, is that in that personalization I've put in there to not do that feeling based stuff.
Yes.
Deliberately, because it doesn't feel anything. So actually that helps to keep that objective and say, well, look, it doesn't really understand. And as you say, you can get that over information. And one of the things that is as well is we talked about how to stay connected, and there's this thing of identity as well, isn't there, of terms of, well, if we're kind of taking on board what the AI is giving us, bearing in mind that I read some statistic. This isn't one I've
not verified statistic, but go on.
But I think it was on I think it was on like BBC or something.
Yeah.
But it was something around like 80% of what AI is getting from Reddit.
Yeah.
So,
oh dear.
So I was like, well, if you're getting all this different information, depending on how much, and it weights it, so it says, okay, well, this information seems like it's probably more valid because maybe there's the number of it or the source of the information. And so if you end up building this, and people do I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, people building relationships with chatbots, but it's only ever really a one-way relationship, even though it's like standing in a mirror almost, isn't it? And talking to yourself almost, which might be satisfying for a while. But I just wonder, and what your thoughts on what can that do to your identity when you're not actually, when you're being fed kind of things in a way that is predicting what it is you want to hear?
Yeah, so part of the work that I do is actually on identity for people. I think that understanding who you are is inherently really important for what you're giving to the world, because when you know what you're here to do, what your purpose is, then actually that helps you. I think that if you are only hearing back good things, then you never have anything to work on. And we are humans, and the one thing that we're all fantastic at is not being perfect. That's very vital to us, because it's in solving those problems and working against those things and how we overcome things that our identity grows. I was always struck by when the Eden Project began, they grow trees inside the big bubble, and they were all weak and weedy because they forgot about the power of wind. If you have nothing to go against, then you don't grow strong. And I think that if you are constantly fed something which is anemic, if it's echoing it back, if you're talking to a mirror, it's not every flavour under the sun, it's not difficulty, it's not different things, then you don't get to grow. And I think that core identity is in the experiences that you've had and in the interactions that you have with other people. That person that on the very first meeting drives you absolutely up the wall, but actually learning how to get on with that person gives you tools and skills that later on become really valuable for you then to be able to grow and, deal with other people that are similar. You learn. I think if you're always just reflecting back at yourself, you don't learn in the same way. And obviously from the faith side for me, that inherent belief that we are here for a purpose. And as soon as you put us under God's authority, then suddenly that purpose and that vision becomes available to you and who you're designed to be. That then frees you from stress, mental health, everything else, because it doesn't make your life easier, but it gives your life the next step. And sometimes people just don't have that next step. And I think that when you understand what you're there to try and achieve, you can then, strategy person, so you can then work it back into what you need to do to get there. And I think, if you're stuck just reflecting a mirror back or just something predictive, you need that unpredictability, you need that chaos. One of the titles I often refer to myself is I'm a mischief coach. I literally allow people to borrow my brain for a bit, because actually what I will do is I will encourage them to, the box will be over there, and I'll encourage them completely out of it to look at what they actually want to achieve. So they might not like what I'm going to say to them, but actually that challenge is what will make them achieve where they want to get to. So.
Yeah, it's quite a few things to unpack there. One of the things that struck out to me was the difficult person, and actually what a great way to reframe that, to turn and say, oh, I've got this person at work that's difficult. When you think, well, okay, if I can figure out how to work better with this person, then that's a win for them, it's a win for me, and actually I get to grow. And I think that's an interesting thing, isn't it, that we don't want to ideally, and it isn't, historically people like face the fear and do it anyway, but that's not really what it's about, is it? It's not about fear, it's about saying, okay, here's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And I think, and I agree with it, you say that there are opportunities to grow using AI, but if we don't, well, first, if we don't check the output, if we don't understand what it's giving us, if we're using it for filling in the answers to tests and things, well, that doesn't really help us. I mean, we might in the short term, get a job, but then in that job we've got to deliver on the things that they're expecting us to be able to do. And so I think that the how we use it, and then that kind of ties in what you're talking about with values and purpose. If I certainly find that I like to work with people as well with values and purpose, because I believe if I know my values and my purpose and the mission and where I'm going, and it's almost like you've made the road narrower.
Yeah.
And therefore shut
the noise down.
It's easy to make decisions. It's a bit like, otherwise, I never had one, but you remember those balls? They're like those where you could shake them.
Oh, the number 8 balls, yeah.
Yeah, number 8 balls, and it would give you a decision. And you think, if you're not careful, life becomes a bit like that. And if you're using AI to make the decisions for you, the danger is that's what you're doing, is shaking a ball, and then it just comes up with the most, its best prediction of what it thinks you can do. The
most thing that I use AI for isn't for that kind of thing. What I use it for is the boring jobs that I just cannot be bothered. The things. So I use it as an editor. I get it to double check things for me. If I want to take information and present it in a different form, fantastic, it does that. If I want it to find me 10 useful quotes within a series of text, wonderful. If I want a picture generated, you have to get the prompt so right to get a picture generated that you actually want. But, I can do that without me having to sit there in front of, paint or whatever and try and actually make a useful picture. So it's, I use it really very much as a tool to assist what I am doing anyway. I don't use it to tell me how to do stuff. So I do bits of coding for different things as well. I've never let go of my programming. That's always come along with me. And recently I had an error and I could not find it. And I'm usually pretty good at debugging errors. And in the end, in disgust, I opened AI for the first time to help me with my coding, and I dropped it all in and was then very embarrassed that one of the very rookie errors that you're told to check, which is your variable names, and the capitalization of them. And that was the error that I'd actually slipped up on. And I felt like, great, that's wonderful. Like, I mean, it picked it up, but it was just that moment of like, oh, I'm slightly embarrassed that that's the error you're telling me about. I thought it was going to be more complicated, but it was just like, actually, it saved me time and it did the job that I wanted it to do. Now, if I had asked it to write what I wanted, the program, I have tried that to see if I could run that concurrently at the same time as me programming. And the amount of time that it took me to get the AI to actually produce the code was a lot longer, because I want it clean, I want it everything else. That's because I'm technical. However, there is now a series of tools that are coming out where you don't even have to see the code. You can pretty much talk to it and it will generate you an app. It will generate you different things. And I haven't yet fully played with all of those, but I've definitely got plans to play. And I think that, that opens the door to removing some of those moments and skills that people need, but allows you then to be fully a creative. In the same way that I'm doing with business owners, I'm removing the issues they're having with the back end of their business. The salon owner doesn't really care about her social media. She cares about her customers looking good when they leave. So that's what she wants. I'm just taking that noise and quietening it down into tools that actually make the booking process, so she doesn't have to do that, step by step herself. That I'm making sure that she captures reviews and there's other bits and information that's going on. So it's, her prices are right across everything, that kind of thing. You can use AI to do all that checking in seconds in a way that that saves her time to book another client. That seems sensible to me. So.
Yeah. And I think there's a sort of two approaches. I think that you covered there. One is the checking, and one is the thinking. So that's the thing, isn't it? We don't want to take away the checking, the thinking, or the decision making, because those are the things that actually it is not so good at. I mean, this is one of the classic things, isn't it, with AI? And I can't remember which one. I think a lot of them do it, but I know ChatGPT does. And it says thinking, right? And it's not. And if it said, processing or doing pattern recognition, or what it's actually doing, whereas it says, it implies it's thinking, but it's not really thinking, because it's been programmed to be as human as possible. That's that. So it's going to responding in ways to be, I'm thinking, I'm doing these things, but it's not really. I mean, I use it for some things that you say as well, in terms of I use it for research, but I don't trust it. I mean, if I use it for try to get me some, and then I will then go and follow through the sources and check to say, this is actually, maybe, it probably maybe 2 out of 10, I would say, sources I found on average are actually that are valid. I mean, it's not the others are not valid, but they've been assumed by a number of different. But I find it safer personally to go with, here's a report. In that report, they've said this. So if I can get that statistic that works for whatever I'm looking for in my research, then I find that really helpful. I use it for doing some ideation, like giving me some ideas that I can then refining that, starting with my idea, expanding it, refining it. And I've used it for building apps. And however, it's in all of these things. So I found with building apps with Lovable, I need my technical experience, because I would still get stuck if I didn't. So that's something to be careful of, is you might get something, but then it's not quite right, or it's not quite working how you want it to, because it can't understand the logic necessarily. So the example being, I did an assessment app, and it's just twice I've happened. I've done 2 assessment apps, and both times that it failed in the logic.
Yeah.
And this is weird to me, because I'm always like, hold on a minute.
Yeah. But you see, it's because it's written as a large language model rather than a logic model. So it's like it's used to echoing language back at you. I am very much addicted to spreadsheets. I collect a lot of data and I process a lot of data on spreadsheets. And I find that sometimes it is better to write it out in English, what I want it to achieve, and then put it into the code assistant to actually then give it back to me in that. And even then, some of what comes back is just gibberish. And you're right, you need your tech ability to go, well, that's great, but that piece of code that you've just used there, that doesn't actually exist in this software. So that's never going to happen. It's not going to work that way. And actually, if you loop this way through stuff, you're looking at the wrong set of data. So it's just like it's trying to get that fine line between what you're prompting it to do and getting the correct things out of it. I think there's I saw a job the other day for a prompt engineer. That's the first time I'd seen an AI job for a marketing department. They literally were hiring a prompt engineer for a marketing department. And it was just like, that's really interesting. So you're happy to embrace AI, but actually you need someone that is smart enough to actually write what you actually want to get what you need out of AI back. So it was, yeah. I mean, I like it for ideas. I do. I think that in the same way that, years ago, I remember my parents getting frustrated with my constant why questions. And in the end, they taught me the Dewey Decimal System at the library, because they took me to the library and I learnt the Dewey Decimal System. So if I wanted to go and find something or know something, I could go and look in that area and find the source and the information. And I think that that's one of the things that's kind of missing from AI is I still like to be able to go to the source and actually look through and evaluate it for myself. I find Gemini as a AI is the best for me for that. I can ask it to give me the sources and it will actually give me the things to read. But yeah, it does do a lot of assumptions. You're absolutely right. It's not always helpful.
Yeah, and the other thing that, as you're saying about with the spreadsheets, the other thing that is kind of shocking, really, which again I don't think everybody realizes, again because it's assumption, it's a machine, and therefore surely it should be good at numbers.
Yes.
And it's like really bad with numbers.
Yeah. Yes, really bad with numbers. Don't ask it to do your numbers. Don't let it do your accounts ever. It's just so they think that there is assumption, isn't it, we make about AI because of the fact that it is, as we say, it's a computer program, but there's that thing of it's a computer program that's trying to predict human behavior. So then you look at that context and you go, oh yeah, well, human behavior is kind of, all over the place. It's pulling in data from all over the world and trying to predict what one, we're having a conversation with this one particular person, what we particularly want. As you said, there is that element of detail, and it's interesting the example with the marketing agency, because as you said, things, creating graphics and marketing using AI needs some really good prompting. If you want to repeatedly if you've got somebody's brand assets and you'll repeatedly be able to create copy for them or whatever it is you're doing, particularly graphics, then you're going to need to be able to prompt that really well to be able to produce that. So I can see why they would need those prompts, those engineers. And I think that's the other thing about, and something else somebody said the other day was that we don't know what the jobs are going to be. So there's a concern over people losing jobs. But if we look at it historically, you think, 30 years ago, there were jobs that didn't exist. I mean, when I was at college back in the 90s, and then there were jobs that just didn't exist. I mean, there's so many jobs that just didn't exist. There wasn't YouTubers. There you go. No, exactly.
There wasn't content creators. There wasn't influencers. So we do have to be careful that we don't get carried away with, yes, we're in a time of change. We're in a time where for some people, they might have been aiming at one career and they might be now thinking, okay,
it's not going to exist.
What is that going to look like? But the reality is we don't know what other jobs are going to be needed, because particularly I think we were talking about if we use AI, there's two ways. If we're using it to actually do get rid of the noise, like you said, that gives us more time to think, more times to innovate, more times to actually create other things. And also, if we use AI as a sort of extension in terms of, okay, how do I then, we can see, and we will see new things created, which will create new jobs, rather than it being, yes, there are going to be jobs that just are not really going to make as much sense, other than I think there's going to be a new job. I don't know what it's going to be called, but I think in every field, there needs to be somebody checking the output. And if you, and like you said, with the programming, if you don't have any expertise, so I don't think programmers are ever going to go away, because you're still going to need, and this is going to be the challenge. Your industry is going to go, well, how do I
make sure that's people actually sensible? Yeah.
How do I make sure that I can program? There'll be people who want to learn programming so they can check, what AI is doing, and otherwise there's danger. I mean, they're already talking about it, and it's kind of scary, but there is this whole AI programming itself, and you're thinking, well, what sort of mess is that going to get into, right? I mean, would we see potentially AI getting worse and worse because, who's if nobody's doing the checking to say, well, okay, here's an update. The AI's come up for updating its own code, right? But if it's not if there's a problem with it, and I think there's always going to be that element, like the marketing. In marketing, you still need somebody that understands marketing
to say whether or not it's actually good. You don't know if it's going to appeal to anybody. It'll just be like, oh, that's great, but that doesn't do anything. Yeah, I think for me, it's that moment of the limitless possibilities. As a human, yes, AI will do something, but it can't predict my unpredictable. And I think that is, it can't join me on what my brain will produce or what it will do or the things that I will see. I interact in a physical world. So therefore, whatever I'm experiencing with that, my staff always used to laugh was I would solve the problems nobody ever saw was a problem. And by that, I was like, what on earth do you mean by that? And they laughed and they pointed at my drink in McDonald's. That's just happened to be where the conversation had come up. And obviously we've moved over to paper straws. And as you know, if you leave your paper straw in your drink, you get two things. Your drink tastes funny because it's gone flat, because the carbonic acid has all come out. And you need that for fun taste and also fizziness. And two, your straw has gone soggy, right? And so they had watched me walk in, and they're all there with their complaining about the soggy straws and blah, blah, blah. And I had lifted my straw up and turned it sideways, so it sat held at the top of the thing. And they were like, that's what you do for everything. And it's like, you solve the problem because you've seen it, you've decided it's a problem in your head. You haven't even consciously acknowledged that, and you've done that. And AI doesn't have that ability to be able to interact in a physical world that we exist in, observe something and make a change. What it's doing is working in that world of idea and creation and that kind of space. And yet, I'm sure that if we gave it enough power, it could come up with something that somebody hasn't thought of. I love the fact that we can put a ridiculous amount of models of science into it to get it to try and work out and predict whatever the next thing is. And yes, but in the same way that humans have done that over years, they spoke about how many, I think when I went to school, I think there are 102 elements in the periodic table. There's a whole pile more now, because they've worked out how to create, form, that kind of thing. So it's just like, what does that look like if you are then borrowing all that knowledge in AI and projecting that forward? I think there's some fun things to find there, but they're never going to sit in a room in a McDonald's with a drink with a paper straw and think, I don't want a soggy straw, because they just don't have that input. That input doesn't exist. And that's information that nobody's going to sit there and type that information into AI. That's just not going to happen. So it's that part that it can do so much, but yet we're here on a physical plane interacting with our physical world, and it's not joining us. So
yeah, I love that. And as we Actually, George, should I close? I think it's a perfect kind of place to do that because of that whole consideration. Yes, it can be an exciting area. So to encourage those people that are concerned about fear, there are people like yourself or myself and others that really are approaching using AI and understanding, first of all, what are your values? What are your purpose? What are you wanting to achieve with it? How can we help you achieve that in a way that is safe and comfortable for you to do so? And on the other hand, ensuring that we are with other humans, that we're not going to, when we understand our vision and purpose, nobody's going to come out with a vision and purpose that is going to be about AI, or it's going to be about something most likely that's the betterment of themselves, or most even more likely other people, or the world as a whole. It's going to be things that, and I think that's the thing to remember, that it's actually, which is really the concept behind Better with Humans. We're saying, well, look, we are better together and we're better as humans, and any technology
is a tool,
can augment us. Yeah, as a tool. Yeah, it can help us, but it's not. There's no point.
And I'm very glad that antibiotics exist and all those kind of tools, and the very clever humans that discovered all of that, because actually it makes us better as a human race. But still, it's something that assists us. It doesn't steal from us. And as long as we keep it in that space of thinking, then, I'm glad there are people that their purpose is to learn about antibiotics and all manner of other things. But I'm also glad that there are people out there whose purpose is to play with AI and know that kind of thing, But I think there is still that moment that actually life is for living, and in amongst that there is joy to be had. And if AI allows you to get more time off to go and play with your family and to be with your friends and to be with other humans, then I'm all for that. 100%.
Yeah, amen. That's definitely. So if people have found what they've heard interesting, and they want to find out more about what you do or get in contact, what's the best way for them to do that?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also contact me on my email address, which is helen@weddelandturner.com. And you can just say hello, and we can go from there.
Well, thank you, Helen. It's been really fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope others will find it valuable too.
Yeah, not too many mad analogies, at least.
It was all good. Thank you for your time.
That's right.